Hello, this is Ashy. Today I have Des.
Hi, what's up?
So last week we got around to talking about clerics and domains. This week we want to put a focus on variant channeling. Variant channeling is a mechanic that clerics and other channeling classes, as long as they can tie to a deity, can opt into when they gain their channel. So you essentially have your healing and damage, but you gain additional effects for that ability. The numbers for these bonus effects, you start with a +1 or a -1, and that number becomes one higher at 5, 10, 15, and 20. So, to qualify for any given variant channel, your deity needs to have a relevant portfolio. The effects are kind of theme based and based on these like portfolios, and while some are obvious to compare with any given god, some may require a little more extrapolation. Also, if it needs to be said, you only get access to a single variant channel option. It's worth mentioning that a successful saving throw to resist harm and harmful effects only negate the harmful effect and doesn't reduce the damage of it from like the effect any further. It's basically you're taking that half damage. It's also worth mentioning that some channels have an enhanced effect where most targets the effective number is still halved, but against enhanced target, not only is the channel rolled normally, but additionally it is empowered, gaining like a 50% bonus healing or damage.
Like meta magic, but for your channel.
A little bit, yeah. The rules on like how the channel functions implies that it only functions for healing with positive energy or harming with negative energy. This is a very weird rule, keeping in mind that positive energy heals living and damages undead, and the opposite is true for negative. If it actually truly does go both ways, which later verbiage does suggest that it does by stating that a negative energy channel will give a profane bonus, which when we go through, you'll see that harmful channels don't offer anything for a bonus, or there might be a more direct errata somewhere that I've not seen that will make that mechanic just make more sense. And it going both ways not only just makes sense, but definitely buffs the mechanic in general.
I
So,
feel like the reason why the harm effects typically have a lesser effect is because generally the harm effects aren't usually in the hands of players, or at least they don't care about them as much.
I mean, it's not that
Most
they necessarily
people's.
have a lesser effect. It's that a harm effect doesn't really give a bonus; it gives a penalty. Is what I'm
True.
getting at.
Okay.
So, it referencing negative offering a profane bonus implies that you can offer a bonus with negative, which is why the
Eh,
verbiage between the two rulings is so weird. Because one implies it's impossible, the other implies that's how it works.
Yeah.
So, to actually get started, Air, Sky, and Wind, its heal will grant you a bonus to acrobatics and fly, as well as saving throws against wind or air effects. It's not useless, but most likely, if this is your channel, you'll probably be the one inflicting the wind effects or the air effects with your own spells. And there are more useful bonuses to have than acrobatics and fly if you were going for a bonus. The harm could be more useful as it has creature movement that's towards you, and it also gives a penalty on range attacks, which isn't likely to hinder your party if you're built around it. Like, if your party isn't using range attacks, they won't care. And they're probably not needing to move towards you. And it's somewhat of a defensive layer, making it where enemies have a harder time reaching you or shooting with range. And both of these effects will last until your next turn if you used it. The harm's a defensive layer. I can't say that Air Sky Wind feels very good otherwise, though.
Yeah, no, looking at it, like I can maybe see situations if you're in like a war type scenario where it's mass combat. suddenly giving a penalty like to enemies would be nice to save your back lines. But since channel is what is it, 20 or 30 feet?
It's
Like
a
a
30-foot radius.
yeah, it's like yeah, it's a 60-foot burst, so it's you're not exactly hitting a large number of creatures with it.
You could have an entire fight within it, but not
Yeah,
if you're looking at a mass combat situation. That's kind of silly.
I
Uh,
guess I guess if you can peg down their like Zen Archer or whatever, or their, I mean, but even then their bonuses are usually so high I don't think the penalty is gonna nail them that hard. If you're a dedicated archer, you're probably overcoming these penalties easy enough.
it can matter if your enemy is a Zen Archer and they're trying to shoot the crap out of the heavily armored frontline.
Yeah.
But if they're targeting the heavily armored frontline, they're probably already doing it wrong. They should be trying to take you out as the healer or maybe an arcane caster, which will have lower AC anyways. Though if there's a crap ton of archers trying to take out the party, this could be good because they're probably lower CR than you. If
Probably,
you are
yes.
trying to cast wind spells to disrupt the enemies, you could channel, then cast, and inflict, like, well, boost your ally saves against your own wind effects. But yeah, with some setup, it might be okay. I don't think it's very good. I don't think it's
No.
better than basic channel, I should say.
Yeah, no, I would rather basic channel over this. I mean, I think the only good thing is, I believe this. Does this still give the healing?
Yeah, so you get like half the healing, or
Yeah,
half the
okay, so
damage.
so at the very least, like you're still getting some healing out of it if you're using these, but yeah, no, stick with the basic channel.
Ale and Wine, Ale and Wine's actually a little bit better. So the heal allows your allies, or any creatures affected, I should say, to ignore the nauseated and sickened conditions, which that might be more niche, but ignoring like ability damage from poison. Again, poison might be niche, but the ability to just ignore it could be a powerful silver bullet.
Until
And
the end of your turn, your next turn though, it is
yeah,
it is limited.
it's still a channel. It's still spammable. If you
Yes.
desperately need to keep it up, you can spend a fight channeling, healing, and also allowing your allies to just not be nauseated, not be sickened, or not be suffering from poison effects, essentially.
Um, there is a hilarious caveat here that it does not bring a creature back to life if it was killed by con damage. So basically, if a poison actually killed one of your party members because it reduced their constitution to 0, this will not let them ignore that and come back to life for that one turn.
Yeah, I didn't even think that one was worth mentioning because, yeah, it's a hilarious caveat, but
Is this a guide for
it's
experts or new players?
that's fair. Experts will probably already just know that a
Or
dead
they'll
creature
get
can't be brought
argumentative like
back
certain
to life.
yeah, they'll get argumentative like certain people if this wasn't explicitly mentioned.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Okay, well, its harm. The harm effect causes creatures to be nauseated for 1 round. And nausea can be a very powerful CC tool because if you don't know what nausea does, it basically prevents you from doing anything other than taking one move action effectively. So if you manage to pin a bunch of enemies with nausea, they'll be too busy fumbling around, heaving, or throwing up, and won't be really able to fight you for that round. It's probably worth mentioning that, but I think this is actually worth saying as being better than base channel. Like, it might be situational, but it's also a powerful silver bullet. And for a negative channeling cleric, you can pretty much cause most of the enemies in an encounter possibly to just heave over and waste a turn doing nothing.
Yeah, to be fair, losing half of your healing or half of your damage to basically allow your party to act if they were nauseated, or to allow them to act at full power if they like somehow got poisoned and had like a bunch of dex strain or such, or just like half the damage just to CC an entire enemy group potentially. absolutely worth it. Because, to be fair, healing is not the best form of prevention. Just stopping the enemies or buffing your team is the best form of prevention for damage.
Remember, children, death is the best CC. Alright, so, that one's good. Art and music. So, art and music, it's the first one whose effects actually just last a minute rather than, like, a single round. The heal will give a bonus on perform, which isn't always useful, but, the second benefit helping to resist illusions and, sonic effects and, language dependent effects, that could be pretty solid if an enemy that would abuse them, i.e. enemy bard, arises. It's it's arguably not that good because of how situational it is, and it's not a solved silver bullet either. The harm, on the other hand, it will inflict a penalty to those same effects. So, like, if your spells happen to be illusions, sonic, or language dependent, you could channel to set up for yourself.
Or if you have a bard in the party, they'll absolutely love you smacking an enemy with that.
They will, because they can take that and make advantage with it. Synergy can be good. This one might be better than base channel, especially for the negative, for the synergies and the potential that if you've taken this as your channel, you are using one of those effects as
And
like
just the
a
fact
mechanic.
that it's a minute instead of a turn.
Yeah, it lasts a while. It's a little bit harder for an effect that lasts a minute to be all that terrible when what you're replacing is like half of
A
your
one-off.
healing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like that's gonna last the entire fight in most cases. So if
Yeah,
it's
very
relevant,
very
it's very
few
relevant.
battles go more than 10 rounds unless it's like a mass combat.
Yep. Okay. Battle and Wrath. So the heal for Battle and Wrath, it gives bonus damage, and it gives a bonus to critical confirmation. A bonus of damage is always just nice, and lasting until your next turn does mean that like you're increasing the damage of essentially all of your party members and all creatures that are actually being affected by your channel. We'll get into that one eventually. The harm, it essentially does the same thing, but in reverse. It's applying a penalty to the damage and to the critical confirms. It's also kind of solid. Like, Battle and Wrath, I could see most people that can access it, i.e. Gorham worshippers or whatnot, taking that. More damage is more damage. Reducing damage from enemies is reducing damage from enemies.
And just the fact that it's more damage for the party.
Yeah.
It's that can add up quick if you've got a couple people that like a 2-weapon fighter, an archer, like people that are just gonna lay on the attacks.
And, like, I almost feel like there could be something to say about, okay, but the healing loss doesn't really make up for the reduced damage, but keep in mind, if you're doing the harm, you're not healing your party, you're doing damage to your enemies.
So you're doing damage and slapping them with a
With a
penalty.
debuff. That reduces their damage.
And that penalty on the crit confirmation rolls, like when that actually saves someone because the enemy did not confirm because of that, oh, you're gonna cheer.
That would feel good, yes. Or if you
That would
happen
feel
to
really good.
boost your ally so they just crit, that'll also feel
Yes.
really good. Battle Wrath, good. Beauty, Love, and Lust, it gives the heal bonus versus like charm, fascination effects, and like specific abilities that rely on physical attractiveness. The fascination here is probably the most common that the party will be getting hit with, and it's not bad. While the effects can be debilitating, that side might be a little bit eh.
It is another minute one though.
It is another minute one, so if you're against enemies that rely on that heavily, it's improved quickly. Though if they have harms, they might have dominates, and it won't help you against the dominate.
That is true.
The harm, you might be unsurprised to hear, inflicts a penalty to those effects, which this might help Charm Domain out a bit, and it can help you set up for your enchanters if they rely on these effects. And yeah, as we said, this lasts a minute, so this will be up for the entire battle. The harm, I think, is pretty good. The heal, I have a hard time deciding on whether that one's good or not. Lasting a minute makes it hard for it to be bad, though. you're probably not wasting your time with it at least. So, Bravery and Valor, it helps those that are afraid a second chance of just not being afraid, and gives them a bonus to that check. Or I should say, to that save. And if you're not afraid already, it gives you an AC bonus. And it'll also give you a bonus to an attack roll if it's made as part of like a charge. The bonuses will only last till like the channeler's next turn. That's pretty normal. I think this site's good.
It is
lets
good.
it
Yeah.
it'll let your ally break out of CC, and like it helps them break out too with a little bonus.
I feel like the weakest part about this is the fact that you kind of want to use it as your alpha strike, and typically at the beginning of combat you don't need the healing, so you are just using this to get all your buddies in position.
Yeah, like the charge part is very alpha strikey because if you're already in a fight, you're probably not charging. The AC bonus could always be decent though.
That is true. The AC bonus is definitely worth it.
Yeah, and on the harm side, it's just a normal harm channel. There's no modifiers here, nothing special. I guess imposing an AC penalty might be too powerful.
Even though eventually AC just kind of falls off as a mechanic unless you've really, really highly dedicated to it.
Oh, you see, I'm foreshadowing because later on, you'll see. But yeah, I think Bravery and Valor isn't bad. Like, the charge part is the weakest part. It's just icing on the cake. The AC bonus,
yes,
it's hard for an AC bonus to really be terrible. It could give you like upwards of reliably a +3 or +4 mid game, or mid to late game even. You're probably not going to see the +5 at 20. I'm sorry. Oh, and also breaking out of fear. Your fighters will be very happy about that second chance.
But if they have bravery, they should be fine.
Hopefully. Not always. We both know this. Alright, so cities. It's a little bit flexible in use. The flankers gain a bonus to attack rolls when flanking, and flanked creatures gain an AC bonus when flanked until the end of your next turn. So without selective channeling, this is pointless. And with selective channeling, this is great. Selective channeling is a feat. It allows you to exclude some targets from your channel. This will help you keep from debuffing your allies, or damaging your allies, and from healing and buffing your enemies. And the harm's also kind of rude. It'll cause a creature's squares and squares that they threaten to become difficult terrain. And it's a difficult terrain that will follow them, so there's no walking out of it. And it'll also impose a penalty to acrobatics and overrun attempts, which will kind of make it harder for those creatures to avoid AOs. That'll also last until the start of your next turn. The harm's not terrible. The heal definitely requires freaking selective channeling to even have a point, but you're probably taking selective channel anyways if you're a cleric.
I feel the biggest problem with the selective channel is I don't think it gives you enough numbers to exclude all enemies, but yeah, this is definitely one of those things you do not want to channel. I can't recall if we said it, but I'll reiterate it here. Channel energy without selective channel will heal everything in the area. That does include enemies.
Yes. It hasn't been said, but I think that I felt like it was obvious. Or I think we might have stated that somewhere in there.
We are making these videos for new players, so
True.
it is best to say it.
Yeah. We'll cover selective channeling in the next video.
Yes. Good feat. Great feat.
Good feat. Probably essential for a cleric. Or almost essential.
I know Dawn was hating not having it for the long period of time where she didn't have it. I can't even remember if she has it currently or not.
Couldn't know.
Yeah.
Well, contracts and oaths. So it applies its benefits for like heal and its penalties for harm to compulsion effects. These are more common than charms or fascinates, and the effects will only last till next turn, so it's much shorter duration than a minute from the previously. It's fine, but the short duration means you kind of need to anticipate, or it might work slightly better for the harm because you can easily anticipate if your ally is about to try and compulse something.
I'm noticing a theme that a lot of
Really?
the heal ones are requiring you to have some advance notice, unless it removes the effect. But
Yeah.
a lot of the harm ones are just like, yeah, typically you know how to set this up.
Yeah, that is kind of a theme.
The heal
Negative
requires you to know
channelers,
your enemy, and the harm requires you to know your group.
that you're not wrong, because typically it's like the harm side is inflicting debuffs that your allies hopefully can take advantage of, and the heal offers situational buffs. So yeah, arguably a lot of these the harm is slightly better, and yeah, because heal side of contracts and oaths, like the bonuses it gives are good, but it's so short lived that waiting out the 1 round timer for an enemy if they're aware of what you're doing, it's not going to be relevant against them. The harm side much better because you can set up for an ally. Darkness, however, it actually has a different scaling benefit. It'll offer low light vision, which is okay, and at 5 it evolves into giving you dark vision as well. And at 10, 15, and 20, you get an additional 5 feet on that dark vision. It only lasts until the end of turn, so it's less reliable than the good old light spell, or even a torch, for like most conventional parties. Yeah, only lasting until the end of your next turn really hurts that side of darkness. Cute effect. Probably not very good. Not worth your heal because you can cover that with mundane means, or better spells, or better abilities. Because if you've got this, you probably have Darkness Domain and just are giving yourself very possibly like See in Darkness.
Yep.
Speaking of which, the harm it lowers light levels, and it lowers them for a minute. At one
Ooh,
and yeah, so you actually create an area of darkness that lasts probably for the entire fight. And at
that's
one and
not bad.
yeah, and at 1 and 5 it'll drop by only 1 step. At 10 it'll drop by 2 steps, and at 15 it'll drop at 3, and can drop into deeper darkness territory. So you have magical darkness at that point, very possibly. And this can be useful to the channeler, especially if they're built with some kind of fiend sight or they have to be darkness domain, which would make sense if they have this. See in darkness! They won't be hindered by their darkness. The rest of the party might, and probably will, but so will most enemies. I think the harm of this is actually pretty good.
The harm is actually pretty great.
The
Like it,
heal, not worth. The harm, worth.
I mean, to be fair, if you're in a proper setup where you're not nailing your allies with the harm effect, like dropping this just in the middle of an enemy group just to sow some absolute chaos with damage and darkness, especially if you're able to see through it.
One of the better parts of this is it doesn't require your harm channel to injure anything to drop.
That is true, yes. I could see this being really good on like a tiefling cleric if they spent like two uses of their feats to get the see and darkness that a tiefling can take.
Yeah,
Because
or
because then they will not be hindered and everyone else just done.
yeah, or by the time you're dropping See in Darkness, if you have a Darkness Domain Cleric, you also have See in Darkness. So you don't even need to be a Tiefling for that one. Though you could miss out on the Darkness Domain at that point. Which, I mean, I believe
Yeah.
the Darkness Domain was a fairly decent one when we covered it. I mean, it gave a free feat. It's hard to be bad and give a free feat. So, and next up is Death. So, the heal side, it offers a bonus to stabilize. And it'll offer a bonus versus death effects. It can be okay. I rate this side
It
kind of low.
it's for a minute, so again, if you know what you're fighting, this can be useful. Not great. Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree. This isn't the most potent.
like, this isn't the best silver bullet. Like, if it was granting an immunity to death effects for that period of time, or immunity for death effects for even a round, then you could potentially, and you know what you're fighting, you could potentially remove a tool out of your enemy's toolkit. But, nah, it's a minute, it gives a bonus. They can still use their tools and possibly stick it to some things. Like, you can probably still a phantasmal kill like that rogue. I feel like the The heal side of death doesn't benefit from this. The harm side's a bit more versatile, though. It'll penalize stabling, which is not probably going to be relevant to your players. They probably won't care. But it will also penalize healing of basically every single type. So against auto-healing threats with regeneration or fast healing, it reduces their clock by a significant margin. And this side lasting for a minute as well, it's like, you're going to get some value out of that. And if the enemies have healers, they're also being penalized. They're doing less healing. Yeah, the harm side's pretty fine.
Yeah, that is actually very nice, yeah.
So, heal side of death, eh. Harm side of death, potentially very good. Probably better than default channel. So,
agreed.
The destruction heal. Gives a bonus on attack and damage rolls against objects and sunders.
Oof.
If you're a Sunder Cleric, go ham. I guess otherwise, well, there's the harm. Unattended objects take full damage from your channel. Normally they won't take any. Hypothetically speaking, the type of energy channel doesn't matter if you like to break things. This channel might be for you. And bonuses that it offers last until the end of your next turn. Destruction, like, unless your goal as a cleric is to break things, and I don't mean mechanics, physical objects, destruction is probably not for you. I'm going to leave in that leeway for those individuals that would want to use that because they might be a Sunder Cleric. So now we have up next Disease. Disease heal allows you to also heal ability damage from your targets. This is good. The ability to basically hit lesser resto, or limited lesser resto I should say, because you have to scale into better numbers on your channel, that's good. That's worthwhile. Ability damage might not be common early, but becomes fairly common as you get later on. Up to mid-game and late game. And just lowering that number incidentally when you channel, it's good.
It is definitely not bad, yeah.
That's at worth. And the harm applies a sickened, and that sickened will stick around potentially for multiple turns. And it upgrades into inflicting contagion on a single target, and then every target at 20. Which again, you're probably not going to see that bonus at 20, but the second alone actually probably makes it good. Because you're inflicting a debuff that's damaging your enemy's ability to harm you, or save against your effects. And, I mean, a single target contagion attached to it, or if you have it at 20th level, that just sweetens the deal a bit. Disease is not bad, it's good.
Yeah, it's pretty good, actually, yeah.
So, Dreams gives the heal an ability to break sleep effects with the channel by letting the creature roll again with a bonus. That part is very because you don't typically see many sleep effects as you get up to higher levels. And a lot of sleep effects, you can walk up to an ally more reliably, bonk them on the back of the head without even doing lethal damage, and that'll do it.
You're not wrong.
That part, that's not exciting. The second part, though, creatures that are sleeping willfully gain an 8-hour bonus to perception checks to notice trouble, and also a bonus to saving throws while asleep. So this side, it's a little bit better, but not much better. Like, Nightmare exists, your DM might like it. If they do, you get more value out of this. If they don't, Unconscious Agenda exists. There are spells and effects that could be landed on you that could be pretty bad while you're sleeping. And I guess you can't really sleep roll evade a fireball. But you could sleep resist, like, mind control if something's managed to stumble upon you while you're just taking your rest and no one's noticed it at camp. And the perception bonus will help you notice things if they happen to stumble up, but the penalty that you get to perception while sleeping is pretty gnarly. So if they are remotely stealthy, you're probably not noticing them. On the harm side, it imposes a penalty to perception and saving throws against exhaustion, fatigue, and sleep effects. The debuffs last a minute, so you can set up for them. This side's better.
That side is better.
That side's better. Like, a lot of the effects that will inflict exhaustion or fatigue, some of them don't actually ask for a saving throw, so that part won't matter, but some spells like Bone Shatter that inflict it as an additional effect will see a boost from this. Because, yes, this effect does a pile of damage and also inflicts this status condition. And the inflict status condition part is the part that's important there. And other incidental effects that incidentally will just get a little boost, and you can invest and pick some of them up as a cleric. And you can set up for your party if they happen to pick those up.
You know.
Overall, I'm not rating Dreams very highly, but that second part could see some usage. Not the second part of the heal, the second part of the harm as harm. So, duty. The heal gives a bonus on AOs, bull rushes, and disarms. Harm gives a penalty to these. It's a case of it's not amazing unless you're built to benefit from these combat maneuvers. And like the bonus or the penalty to AOs can be okay to like help ensure you get them if an enemy provokes, which might not be likely, or helps you avoid if you provoke an enemy. I wouldn't take it over normal channel, but there are builds that could benefit from this. You could conceivably make use of it.
And this feels like the kind of thing that you would build around your party and yeah.
Like if you know that your fighter was going to invest in like disarm and bull rush, or you were going to hide behind constantly the combat reflexes polearm user, like you can help them out. You can support them a bit, which is kind of what your channel might do, but it's one of those that it can be better if your party is on board with it, and by on board you're supporting directly what they're planning on doing anyways.
Yes. I mean, but I guess with that amount of planning, everything works.
I mean, you're not wrong. With that amount of planning, everything works. But because it requires this level of planning, I have a hard time rating this as good. You can make it good, but if you're on your own, take your basic channel over duty. Now we are looking at Earth. The Earth heal offers Dear Adamantine. It'll scale up to 5. It'll last till next turn. It's fine. It scales a little too slow. And if you get to the point where your enemies have +4 or +5 weapons, the Adamantine DR basically doesn't exist. The harm creates an area of difficult terrain around the channeler. It's niche. It technically makes the channeler slightly harder to reach. On the other hand, it'll also make it harder for them to escape. I'd say it's very okayish. I don't think it's necessarily worth it. I think Earth might be bad.
It sounds pretty bad.
It's a little unfortunate. So then we have Envy. So, Envy offers a bonus to disarm and steal. It also offers a bonus to like bluff and sleight of hand. You know, it's for a minute again. It's a case of it might be good if your party member is built around it, and if you're built around it, you can get some usage out of it, I guess. Keeping in mind you're a cleric, so skills are not really your thing, and your BAB is very mid. Your strength might also be very mid. The harm,
Yeah.
actually pretty solid. It's like, it forces damaged creatures to attempt a steal maneuver, which most enemies will not be competent in, so they'll likely provoke an AoO that you can potentially punish. So essentially, you can cause them to waste their action and punish them for it. If they succeed the steal, it could be awkward, but also that's also kind of funny. So it might still be worth, and as long as they haven't stolen anything excruciatingly valuable or necessary, chances are you can punish them for making an action that you force them to take. CC, extra damage from your like fighters and whatnot. Uh, Heal side bad, harm side good.
Arm side pretty good.
Harm side pretty good. I mean, technically speaking, the heal side isn't the worst thing. Your rogue might appreciate the bluff and sleight of hand.
That is true. Any one of those what's it called feint users would probably like it too.
Yeah, feint users could also make pretty good use of the bluff side, but I have a hard time rating things that require a party member specifically to be able to benefit.
I mean, I would agree, except we're talking about Cleric, which is one of like the premier support options.
You're not
So
wrong.
it is one of those situations where like a Cleric's build can vary greatly from party to party.
Maybe I'm being too harsh on it then. You do present a fair point.
Yeah, like because again, it is another 1 minute long one, so I could see it being useful.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you have a feint cleric, if you are a feint cleric or you have a feint rogue, yeah, sleight of hand's hard to use once you enter combat. It could be useful outside of combat if for some reason your rogue needs to pocket something. Keeping in mind, we're mostly just talking about the frickin' rogue here.
Yeah.
Because that's the person who's most likely to be making use of that. So, the farming heal and harm. The two effects, each, they're kind of inverse. Plant creatures have an enhanced effect for the heal and harm, so they don't take reduced effect, and they get a 50% bonus, whether they're being healed or harmed. The heal allows for creatures to ignore fatigue for a minute, which isn't bad, and the harm inflicts fatigue. It's alright.
It could be a nice
fatigue.
way to shut down a barbarian.
You're not wrong. Like, it will potentially shut down a barbarian if you're fighting a barbarian, or any other rager. And, like, if you're fighting martial monsters, a -2 to strength and dex will hurt them, even if a little bit. And most martial monsters might also not have the best will save, so you've got a good chance of sticking it on your targets that you want it on. For the most part. The fatigue part's alright. The fatigue part's good. The plant part, you probably aren't going to care about. You're probably not going to see a lot of plants. If you do, it'll feel nice to be able to do something to them, I guess. And you're probably less likely to encounter a helpful plant monster.
Yeah, like and they're not exactly the type of thing you can negotiate with and convince to be good. And
Not
help out.
usually.
Not typically.
Most of them aren't intelligent. Some are. Like a Treant. A Treant is absolutely intelligent. You could absolutely barter with or whatever, as long as they're not mad at you or for some reason. And in a lot of cases, a Treant might also just want to be left alone. But, yeah. The plant part you probably don't care about. It's more incidental. So,
yeah.
the fate part. Fate will, The fate heal gives you a bonus on a d20 roll for a readied action. It's kind of niche. It's asking you to, like, hold your action for a trigger of some sort to get a bonus on it. It's probably better to have normal heal in this case.
Honestly, I feel like the only situation, the singular situation I can see this being decent in, is if you've got an archer with Overwatch style where they can actually make 2 or 3 attacks on like with their readied action. So it's one of those situations where, like, yes, this will only give it to one of them, but it's like the only situation I can see this being any good.
I could also see it being good for a Vital Strike Marshal, who is
Okay,
ready in
yeah,
action, waiting for the enemy to walk up so they can flop him.
that one could work.
Vital Strike's a good feat, but
This is not a good ability.
it's like relying and asking for readied actions to get a bonus. It's
This would have been good if they took away the next readied action, or even just the readied part. Like, it just gives you a bonus on 1d20 roll made on your next action. Then it would have been at least usable. Or
yeah, it would, well, not necessarily at least usable. It would have been a lot better. It would have been more flexible. It would have been
yeah,
significantly more useful because everybody could probably benefit from that. Not just the Overwatch style Archer or the Vital Strike flop build.
yeah,
So then we have the harm. It inflicts penalty on ability checks and skill checks. And this is a little better. But it's also kind of niche and like you kind of to benefit from it need to be forcing opposed skill checks,
yeah. Because in
which
combat that doesn't happen often.
and like yeah, it lasts for a minute, but your enemies are most likely making attack rolls, and they're probably not skill checking against you. Like, you could probably get one if you're doing some perception nonsense, aiding the rogue again, so the rogue can sneak better. Because now you're penalizing the opposed skill check. You're probably not getting opposed ability checks, though. That's not very common. You're probably not seeing your enemy making ability checks unless they have a weird ability that makes ability checks.
Man, I have to shit on the heal side of this again, just a little bit more. In our 2.5 now year campaign, I think I can count on one hand the amount of times someone has readied an action.
Yeah, I think the person who's ready the most actions is the DMPC, and that's literally to go bonk
Yeah,
when something walks up.
yeah, no, it's like, so that should show how bad this ability is. It's based on an ability that just, it doesn't come up very often.
It's a mechanic that doesn't come up very often because most people would rather use their entire turn than holding an action. It doesn't feel good to waste half your turn to ready an action to do something.
Like, I guess the situation would be like if you're trying to lure enemies through the door, okay, you're readying your action for when they come through so that you don't have to go through there and face them. But then enemies can counter that by just not running through the damn door.
It's like, hey, you remember
Oh
the Wendigo
man.
fight, right? That's the most ready actions we've seen in a fight in the entire campaign.
That is true, because it was using flyby attack and it was basically using spring attack bullshittery. We had to fight it via readied actions because we couldn't see it when it was outside of like 30 feet.
When it was outside of 5 feet, it was basically unseeable because the snow is just that bad, unfortunately for you guys.
Yeah.
And it doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah, and I think you guys have some words about that fight and that Wendigo just being a fucking asshole. Because, like, the thing about readying an action is if your opponent happens to have, say, exactly 26 intelligence and is aware of the best strategy already to counter what it's currently doing, and is watching the party's action to see what they do on their turns, like, preparing to whack something and just holding your mallet back is a little bit of a tell. And some enemies might not even bother taking that bait. They might stand back, pull out a ranged weapon, or throw a rock, or do literally anything other than what you want them to do. In any case, the Fate side Fate, Fate, heal, Fate, harm. Not very good. So then we can move on to Fire after crapping on Fate for a little bit longer and going on a tangent about Wendigos. How exciting. So, Fire and healing enhances healing and fire creatures. If you're summoning fire elementals, you can make use of this. Otherwise, the harm deals bonus damage to the cold subtype creatures. And it does threaten to catch creatures on fire. The harm side is actually not terrible. Catching on fire can do some consistent damage to things that, aren't resistant. And it requires like an action on the creature's part to stop burning.
Always fun.
Most creatures don't want to be on fire. Early on, this is when it's at its best. You channel fire, you catch a bunch of things on fire. The fire might end a bunch of things early just on its own.
Yeah, chip damage is much more valuable when everybody's HP is lower.
And later on, the fire damage could still be beneficial against some creatures that are weak against it. Like most cold subtype creatures actually are.
Yeah, to be fair, this one is not bad because if you're going to be fighting a lot of cold creatures, and they tend to be weak against the fire.
Let's say your campaign's going to be take place mostly in like Irisen, where there's a lot of random things that are just weak to fire or cold subtype variations of other things like frost trolls and frost goblins, and I guess frost giants and white dragons or whatever. Insert cold-based thing here. You're probably getting
Wendigos?
Wendigos. You're probably getting some benefit out of this ability against those throughout the campaign. Though fire is heavily resisted, so later on in most campaigns, the actual benefit of catching on fire won't be very big. But requiring action on the creature's part to not be on fire, late game means that they're probably going to stay on fire if they're on fire. And you're at least doing consistent chip damage to them, if they care about it at all. So, fire heal, very mid. Fire harm, could actually be threatening. It could be a really big deal for trying to carry the early game.
Kind of campaign dependent beyond the early levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Could you imagine taking this into Wrath of the Righteous? What a hilarious idea that is. Don't you know that most demons, beyond a certain point, just have fire resistant 10? What do you think catching them on fire is going to do? You'll just give them mood lighting.
And there's not that many cold-based demons, so you freaking idiot.
Right.
If anything, they'll hug you and light you on fire.
What a silly Billy you are. But yeah, like said, fire heal has its use. It's very mid. Fire harm could be a big deal. Could. And at least early, worthwhile. So fire, I'm gonna give it's not bad rating. It might be worth your standard channel.
It's not bad out of 10.
Not bad out of 10. That's the highest rating I'm willing to give it. So flying creatures, the heal and harm affects how well a creature flies and how quickly it can fly. So if you're the channeler and or your party members fly, this can be good because 10 more speed, for a round, isn't bad as a bonus effect. That's pretty decent. That's move faster. Otherwise, just keep your normal channel. 10 feet isn't going to affect most enemy flyers, especially at a high level. Maybe low level enemy flyers might be slowed to a quote-unquote manageable amount. But high level, you're looking at things with 110, 90, fly speeds that you're not going to meaningfully affect. In most cases, I'd say flying creatures is strictly worse than your normal channel. unless you and your entire party can fly, which is doable late game. Forge. The heal will do one of two things. It'll either boost AC for metal armor, very specifically metal armor. Most armor in the game is metal, so this is decent, but like the bonus that you got from bravery, which was just straight up, yeah, this is an AC boost, is better. And it has an alternate effect where it can be used to heal metal objects or metal constructs as though it's enhanced, which is niche. The harm enhances damage against metal creatures and metal objects, which is also niche. But like constructs, they can be kind of rough to like fight for a cleric, so my feelings on this are a little bit mixed. I don't think it's good, but having played through Iron Gods as a cleric and flailing at like the mostly construct base with, ah yes, here, have my plus whatever dagger. Big ol' 0 damage! Yeah.
Ah. So this one gets extra points because you're traumatized.
There's slight trauma, which is making me rate it slightly higher than it deserves to be. I don't think it's very good. I think it's too niche. I think you could get more benefit out of, like I said, bravery, for example, or protection later.
I mean, yeah, I kind of feel like this is one of those things where if you just go with that Rune Forge cleric that I was showing you, this is just going 100% into that.
Yeah.
You are caring about the RP over, mind you, actually no, they can't even do that because they lose channel. Never mind.
Style over substance with extra style and even less substance. I don't know.
Just bad. Just bad. That's all.
Anyways, okay, we can move on to freedom. So, the freedom heal grants like a bonus on checks and saves that relate to like being immobilized or slowed. It's not terrible. It doesn't like offer a second save, which means you can't really use it reactionarily at all. And that only really matters against like the spells. But like not being reactionary at all kind of limits it a bit because you've got to see it coming, which I mean with a lot of grapple monsters, you'll probably see it coming. But you might not see a hold person coming.
Yeah, like fair.
It would still help a creature escape a grapple or continuous entangle though.
Yeah. Man,
And
I feel that's the biggest weakness with a lot of these things. They require preemptive knowledge because they're only one turn. So they require preemptive knowledge over like just being able to fix something.
yeah. You're not wrong. And the harm, I kind of rate the harm. It inflicts slow. Slow's pretty good. It's like it's not as good as inflicting nauseated, and it's not as good as inflicting like specifically like dazed or stunned. But inflicting slow does still like heavily damage what an enemy is capable of doing. So I do rate that harm. It's good. The harm's good.
The harm is definitely not bad.
The freedom heal is, I'll give it okay-ish. Overall, this might be worth your channel, and it might be important to say that slow is not mind affecting, so you can, yeah, slow stopping full attacks could be a really big deal. Could be a very big deal. All right, freedom could be good. Hunting. So that heal grants a bonus in survival, and it also grants a bonus on ranged attack rolls. So if your party is ranged heavy with a gunslinger, Zen archer, fighter archer, and if you're rocking a crossbow yourself, etc., for a round, you could get a lot of value. The harm's a bit more niche. It makes like targets less stealthy for a minute, and it can cause them to leave tracks for a minute, even if they normally wouldn't leave tracks. The thing about it is, tracking is not a fast process. So, a minute might not be long enough to be relevant. If it lasted hours, I could rate that, but at the moment, I don't think harm has value. Not really.
Nah. Nah, because if you're slapping someone with this, it is specifically because they are, like, getting the fuck away and you need to track them. And yeah, that minute just not good enough.
Yeah, so hunting's in a place where, unless you're healing a ranged heavy party, just go next. Don't skip it, don't bother, take your standard channel. But if you have ranged heavy, then there's room to start talking. Okay, so journeys. So journeys gives you some like AC against AOs. And the harm will have move speed. These are fine. Maybe not worth the extra channel dice though. Journey's very simple, maybe not be very good.
Definitely not very good.
So justice and law. It grants a lot if your team's lawful. If you've got a very lawful party, this could be significant. If it's only benefiting you because only you are lawful, you're not getting much out of it, realistically. Like, the perception since motive's nice. The attack rolls and saving throws are pretty much where it's at. It only lasts a turn though. But yeah, like I said, lot of bonus if you got a lawful party. And the harm, it inflicts Zone of Truth to like creatures that fail.
Cute.
And like the Zone of Truth only lasts until the end of your next turn, so like most creatures could wait that out, and even then, like it might be useful for interrogation, but I don't see it as very beneficial, especially not in combat, and not really for conventional play, because chances are, like of most enemies, will be hesitant to like give you information while being interrogated. The channel might hurt them, but it might not encourage them to open their mouth within 6 seconds. I guess you can give them the count to 5 and cut off their head thing. If they don't speak, you weren't getting information out of them anyways, right?
That is true. That is true.
So, yeah, Justice and Law I rate very low unless your entire party happens to be lawful. And you're a healing cleric. With, you know, positive energy, all that. So knowledge. The heal gives a bonus to perception checks and knowledge checks for a turn. This can be okay to help identify creatures, you know, during like the spot heal. The harm deals 1d2 points of intelligence damage to sentient creatures. So creatures with a specific amount of intelligence or higher. That number being 3. So you're never going to knock something out with it. But you could prevent a spellcaster from casting some spells. However, the problem with the end damage is that most sentient creatures that care about intelligence also have a good will save. Alchemist is like probably one of the few exceptions that really cares about intelligence and also has a poor will save. It's cute, but it's not probably quite as good as it sounds like it could be. I don't know if I rate this better than basic channel, because the knowledge check bonus could be beneficial if your party's into doing knowledge checks and you're willing to wait for the healer to drop a channel. Most beneficially after the creature's already taken its turn, so that way you can heal up the fire breath that you just took to face. Slightly.
A little bit.
Yeah, I don't rate knowledge high.
Yeah, no. Amala is disappointed that knowledge is not, in fact, power.
Oh, knowledge is absolutely power. Knowledge checks to identify creatures and that succeed, that give you a lot of information about a creature, can be amazing. It can tell you exactly what you need to know. But the knowledge channel might not be where it's at. So luck. Luck only lasts for 1 turn, but It offers a bonus to any single d20 roll of the receiving creature's choice. You know how we were
Yeah.
talking about how much better Fate would be if it did this? Here you go.
Yeah.
Luck does this. Luck is good. It's flexible. It's good. It's worthwhile. You can use luck. And the harm is still good. For that duration of until your next turn, you impose your channel number as a penalty to all of the affected creature's d20 rolls. So your harm makes your enemies more shit at everything if it sticks. Your heal makes one of your allies rolls during their like turn better. Like if Wall was here, this is where he would probably mention that this is the channel that Jack uses. And then this is where I would go, yes, and I typically save this bonus for a saving throw. Or maybe for like an emergency bonus to an attack roll if I don't think I can hit it.
I mean, let's not forget that Jack does combo this with the Faithful channel. So not only is it giving that bonus, but it's also giving a free reroll.
Faithful channel. We'll probably be talking about this in the next video.
Yes, but it's just like, yeah, that luck thing, like, it's kind of because of Jack that I ended up making Dawn, and she uses the same kind of thing. She's
gee.
Yeah.
I bet one day when we talk about their archetype specifically for Shaman, you two will have a lot to say.
Probably, yes.
It'll be great. It'll be glorious. By the way, channeling feat's pretty decent. Tangentially related to luck because character that uses this also uses one of those. But yeah, luck is very good. Luck is worth your channel dice. If you can take luck, it'll be an improvement. You're welcome. So then there's Madness. The Madness heal basically offers a bonus against confusion and rage effects. Most rage effects are considered to be buffs, so that one's a little bit weird, but strictly speaking, you don't want to have rage slapped on your wizard. Because suddenly,
to say, when the bard slaps your wizard with rage.
when suddenly your wizard's ideal play is to walk up and start beating something with a stick, that's not your best place to be. And like this bonus is the bonuses here are kind of niche and not particularly not particularly long lived. So yeah, it's running that category of you need to know something can do it, and you need to time it when things are about to happen. And Madness heal unreliable. The harm inflicts confusion for a turn, which is fine and good actually. Like the harm's fine. We're in a case again, heal bad, harm good. In which case,
honestly though,
you don't care about your heal. What's that?
The confusions. I was gonna say honestly though, the confusion side not that terrible either. Because confusion can absolutely just be like a pile of enemies skip their turn, or a pile of enemies harm each other.
You mean inflicting confusion on the harm?
Yes.
Yeah, that part's good. The harm's good.
Yes.
The heal's kind of bad.
Yeah, the heal side is...
If you are a positive energy cleric, do not touch Madness. The bonus it offers
that kind of goes without saying. Yeah. I don't see a good cleric exactly being the Madness type.
If you're an evil aligned cleric, Madness can net you some use, because inflicting a debuff on your channel, not bad. It's not bad for that. Regardless, we're going down to Magic now. So Magic offers a bonus to caster level checks and concentration checks until end of turn. This can actually be very good to help caster allies beat over spell resist or cast in sticky situations. It's just not bad. The latter part, it's awkward for a caster to be in a sticky situation, and like due to how common a mechanic spell resist becomes later, Yeah, this tool's good. And
Absolutely.
the harm imposes an effect that makes spellcasting and spell-like abilities harder by requiring concentration check, like until the next turn. Like with a DC that's based on the channel DC plus the spell level, which can make the high-level spells kind of difficult for creatures to cast, even like with like a decent concentration check or whatever. Though the awkward part of that is, while this is good and can potentially stifle any enemy mages, most mages have a good will save, so they might not even like fall to the effect normally.
Well, I'm gonna be honest. You say most mages, but like they do have the good will save. But to be fair, the arcane casters don't typically have the best will save, just because wisdom is not a priority stat.
Yeah,
Like
that's fair.
this will suck on other clerics, but even though they have a good will save in theory, I can still see this sticking on an arcane caster.
I mean, it can stick to an arcane caster. I won't argue that logic. It's probably not ever sticking to a cleric or a shaman. You might both stick it to an oracle. They
Yeah.
just have that good scaling will save, so
Yeah, they have the potential to shrug it off just because they have a good will save.
and
Do not
I
try on enemy cleric.
I do have also a little counter argument as well, because let's remember that channel scales off of charisma. So in order to have a high channel
Right.
DC, the cleric needs to have a good charisma as well.
Yeah, you got that. I mean, got me there. Like, yeah, that might be useful if you're using it like on a different character that gets to channel that gets
I
to
mean,
scale their channel with a different thing.
it could be hilarious on an oracle
A life, oh
because
yeah,
life
because they
oracle.
get, yeah, life oracle can grab channel and then go with variant magic channel.
Yeah. Though in that case, I think they are a little bit reliant on hitting undead or other negative affinity creatures with that.
That is true. I mean, yeah, I guess
And
that's the big problem. This is the kind of thing that you'd want to smack a lich or a fucking vampire with, and they're probably gonna save.
I mean, a vampire doesn't have any better save realistically than like you could expect from a sorcerer usually. If they are the base default monster vampire that's in the manual, that is like 8 or 9 levels of sorcerer, however many levels.
That is true.
But yeah, I mean, there's also war priests, but war priests are already very mad. So even though their channel is scaled off of wisdom, they're already mad, and they're probably not doing a whole lot with their wisdom other than say that channel.
Yeah, like let's be fair, the average war priest is probably only pushing their wisdom as high as they need to, and they'll cover the rest with a headband.
Yeah, and then
Because they want to have the good smacky stats.
we can bring in
Typically.
paladin as another channeler or anti-paladin, but they're also very mad. They'll want good
And they're
charisma if they can
blowing
have it.
uses of lay on hands for that, which
Yeah,
kind of oof.
so it's like, yeah, it's a very cool effect, and if you can get it to stick, it can absolutely fuck a caster. It can absolutely just turn a caster off for a round. All in all, it's actually, I think, still good. The magic heal side, very good situationally. And that situation is probably going to be very often. And, like, even if you're not getting the full benefit of the heal, helping punch through spell resistance for your casters, they'll love you for it. And you'll get some benefit too from it. Especially if you've invested in, like, Quick Channel or you're using Swift Spell, which
Yeah.
aren't terrible options anyways.
Hey,
I think magic
talking
is good,
about
worthwhile.
magic is not bad. I do have to say though, talking about magic made me think of something.
Oh?
The fate The Fate domain is decent if you have a counterspeller in your group that's not an Arcanist.
Oh, okay. You're not wrong, but I hate that statement because of how inefficient counterspelling in this system is. You're not wrong, but I hate it.
You're welcome.
I concede that that is correct. Fate is improved if you have a caster using the counterspell mechanics the way that they're
Let's just
written.
waste your cleric's turn and your caster's turn.
I mean, if you've successfully used a Greater Dispel as a counterspell with that bonus, there's a good chance that even the BBEG's 9th level spells aren't getting through.
That is true.
And technically speaking, spending those 2 turns to stop a 9th level spell could very well be worth it, because based on the ideas of what the BBG should represent, that spell should be the most damaging or effective spell that's getting thrown down in the fight.
Yeah.
But regardless, I hate that statement, but you were right. Alright. Okay, Magic Judge good.
Fate's still bad.
Monsters. So, the monsters heal is a DM tool more than a player tool. All it does is enhances effect for like the healing for several monster types. Your party's probably not making use of aberrations, dragons, magical beasts, monsters, humanoids, any of these. You're probably just not. Because you are players. You probably don't have access to this shit. You can technically have access to it, but shut up. Go on, go on.
I was gonna say stares at our harpy. Our adopted harpy would appreciate.
Okay, yeah. But like even then, even if your adopted harpy would appreciate, and even if you had a Drake companion, which is a thing you can do, it's not amazing. The mechanics for it are definitely a thing. One day I'll talk.
I feel this is good with summons. This is the only way that's decent with summons, and even then, with only these specific types of summons.
Yeah, you can make use of it with summons, but even then, like you'd probably prefer the more generic heal to heal the summons and your party pretty well.
I was about to say, yeah, like, or the summons that aren't one of these very specific things.
Yeah.
God.
And like the harm can be beneficial to a player more conventionally if there is like a player that's playing some sort of summoner. Unironically, like giving damaged creatures a penalty to attack and damage summons. Like again, you're kind of relying on interacting with your party a bit, hoping that there's someone who summons, or being the summoner yourself, which you could very well be. It lets you protect your summons a little bit more if it's you. And like there's not a listed duration here, but I think it's safe to assume that it probably only lasts until the next turn, or at most maybe a minute. I'm certain it doesn't last until whenever, because lasting till whenever is a bizarre consideration.
I mean,
yeah.
Since it's against summoned and call creatures, maybe it's until their spell runs out.
Well, the thing about called creatures is that a called creature isn't necessarily gonna run out. And it's not an effect that's placed on the summons. It's an effect placed on an enemy creature.
Yeah.
Like a called creature could be a planar ally that's permanently just knocking about, or with an indefinite duration of, for some reason, by contract.
Well, suddenly they want the contract over because they've suddenly been shit on.
Yeah. Monsters, I don't rate very high. No, yes, you can make use of it if you're a summoner. or if you have summoners in your party. I don't rate it particularly high. Take your standard heal, go next. So we have Moonlight. So Moonlight Heal grants low light vision and a bonus to attack rolls in dim or dark light conditions. The harm dazzles creatures, and Dazzle imposes a -1 to perception attack rolls, and further, the harm imposes a penalty to attack rolls in dim or dark light conditions. Both of these last until the end of next turn, and they're reliant on the light conditions, which makes them pretty easy to foil, and like kind of requires the channel or ally set up. Thus, like, I don't really consider this one very good or reliable. In a vacuum, it can be kind of powerful. If you've literally set the conditions of you're suffering in dim light, it is dim light and it's not changing. It can be powerful.
Yeah.
But it's too easy to foil. I say go next. Take your standard. This isn't very good.
I mean, to counter that one, it is pretty easy to get things in dim light or darker, because while a lot of DMs do skim over the mechanics, like that's most caves and everything if you're not carrying a torch. And eventually parties are relying on things like group dark vision and such, so they're typically not carrying a torch. It doesn't say they don't have to see, it just says they have to be in dark light.
Correct. But it's foiled the moment that an enemy gets the bright idea to light a torch or cast a spell that raises the light level above dim light, which any light spell will do.
That is true, yes.
Now, an unintelligent enemy probably will not react in an intelligent way to counter the effect.
To be fair, if you're causing one of the enemies to waste their turn lighting a torch, that's also not terrible.
Yeah, but if they've dropped a daylight or a sunbeam and that created a light effect, or they happen to have a flaming weapon.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of little ways it can get foiled.
It's like, it can be foiled incidentally. You could technically set it yourself up by dropping down a darkness to keep it dark against mundane means and lower spells, but it's like, yeah, you can set it up, but I think it's too easy to foil to rate high.
It is very easy to foil. When it can be foiled by cantrips.
Yeah. So, Monument Heal. Lasts a minute, it's fine. It offers this bonus to, like, effects that reduce speed or deal ability score damage. That's not bad. I feel like it's a little bit worse than some effects that heal or remove, but it's not bad.
Yeah. Like, if you slap that on at the beginning of a fight, it could be kind of nice.
The harm staggers creatures, though, and that's crowd control, and that's good.
Yeah.
So, a monument isn't bad, I don't think. Like, the harm stagger's good. The bonus versus, like,
ability score damage.
Well, that part's the big one. Like, effect that deal ability score damage. Like, my mind is kind of just going to this place of there's the weird case that some ability score damage effects or speed reducing effects don't actually ask for a save. Like, Bobble's a good example. Bobble's sneak attacks just casually do strength or dex damage. There's not a save. It just inflicts it. Which means that monuments wouldn't protect against that because... And being an unchained rogue, he also can have speed with his sneak attack, and there's no save. So there's no way to really stop that.
Yeah, no, like... And even things like shadows and such, I believe they don't have a save on their thing. They just have to land the hit.
Correct.
Yeah, no, to be fair, there's actually a lot of things out there that just do not have a save when they damage your ability scores.
Like, the biggest thing that'll do ability score damage that has a save that I can think of off the top of my head is Venom. Poison. And, like, poisonous creatures aren't necessarily uncommon, but...
Yeah.
So, like, that's where my brain sees it being the most useful. There's also, like, spells and spell effects.
Iris has a venomous bite.
Yeah. There's also spells and spell effects, or, like, Cherry Blossom spell. This would help you not get cherry blossomed by magic missile.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. Honestly, this is another case though where the harm is definitely better than the heal.
Harm is CC. It's better. Stagger is
CC
about as
always good.
the stagger is about as good as the slow. The slow's a little bit better than stagger realistically, because slow will also slow down spell casting, whereas the stagger they can still cast at full speed.
Yeah.
But like the harm, it's crowd control. It's good. The heal might be worth dice. So like all in all, monument's good, probably worthwhile. Gee, I feel like we almost sounded like we hated it. Which, to be fair, like, yeah. Anyways,
I
murder.
mean,
So
with all the other options out here, it's good, but it's like it's not one that I like. It wouldn't even hit my top 5.
yeah, like there are several that are better. If you don't have access to the better ones, it's not a bad option. And like, I'll get into that later. So murder. Murder is all about bleed. So you heal creatures, and healing a creature gives them a bonus effect that inflicts a bleed if they crit. The harm inflicts a bleed in itself, and the number of bleed that you're inflicting is based on your penalty or bonus for said variant channel. It's a case of like it can be okay early because like bleed early on is a death sentence.
Yeah.
Later on, like the bleed won't be very high, but it will still be chip damage, so it's okay.
It could be nice if you have anything that can like combo off of it.
Which
There's
you
not
can
much.
there are ways to combo off of it. This is
Yeah, there
where
is.
this is where WoW would scream Shax's name because Shax one of his boons allows you to heal off of bleed damage, but it also like gives you sneak attack and some other effects that allow you to make creatures bleed more reliably. You could also benefit from like the blood crystal rapier or blood crystal weapon in general.
Yeah, just that extra damage because it's bleeding.
Yeah, a little bit of extra chip damage from like your rapier. Or I don't know why I keep saying blood crystal rapier. Blood crystal can apply to like any slashing or piercing weapon, or I think even bludgeoning
Yep.
weapons too.
Yeah, I had a samurai who had a blood crystal katana.
Yeah. Also, it's a very edgy material. It starts pink but turns red when it's fed.
Yeah. And Amala is very obsessed with making sure that all of her girlfriend's jewelry is made out of it.
Yeah. So murder's very okay-ish. You can combo off of it. You can make use of it. It's probably better than base channel. Like its effects aren't amazing, but it's better than base channel, which is probably high praise considering how many of these we've said. Just take your base channel.
Yeah, this is one of those ones that might be worth taking the variant.
Yep.
Mind you, again, more on the harm.
I mean, the harm just inflicts bleed,
The
and
heal the
it's
heal is nice if you're dealing with someone that is using high crit weapon.
high crit range weapon. Yeah, I agree. There is a case of like, if you are good aligned here, which is a weird flex because it's literally murder. How are you? How the fuck are you good aligned? Nature. So nature enhances the heal and harm for animals and fae. So this part, the heal's all right if there's like one or more animal companions, but like you might prefer a basic channel heal if that's what its purpose is. The bonus for the like
Yeah.
heal to handle animal and wild empathy for a minute is okay. I'd honestly probably say you should stick with your normal channel.
Yeah. Harm might be useful in a campaign where you're going to be against a lot of natural stuff. I can think of one pre-made adventure that has that, but yeah, regular channel probably better.
Yeah. So So Nightmares. I think Nightmares heal is actually good. It's a bonus versus Charm and Compulsion, and it lasts for a minute. So you know
That's not bad.
how we were talking about a previous one? Contracts! Yeah, that's right. So you know how that one was like okay because like its effect was technically better, but it only lasted a round. So
Yeah.
Nightmares lasting a minute is actually really good because Compulsion can take away valuable party members. So
Yeah, Freya definitely gonna be that.
so having a minute duration it just really helps. And like yeah, a bonus with charm doesn't hurt either. The minute of compulsion resistance is the real kicker here. The charm resistance, nice nice side piece. And then like the harm, it penalizes concentration checks. And that can be okay. And the saves against fear and phantasms, which that can be okay. Like the second part where it's like, yeah, against saves against fear and phantasms, that's something that you have to set up yourself or have like teammates that can flex off of that. That concentration penalty is also just generically useful against other mages if you manage to get it to stick. So all in all, I think Nightmares is fine. Its heal's good, and its harm isn't necessarily bad. It's weird to consider Nightmares as something for a good aligned creature, but it's good for you if you are and able to.
Yeah, no, just that nightmare one just kind of really decent.
It
I'm
kind
I'm
of is.
starting to think though. I bet if we looked, like the nightmare domain is probably not very good, and that's why the variant channel is good. Whereas, like, I bet if we look at the contracts one, the domain will be a lot better, and that's why the variant channel probably sucks.
Well, keeping in mind that these aren't actually necessarily subdomains or domains. These are associated to portfolio, so they're even more vague.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no, but
contracts
I
would
mean,
say be associated with like Abadar, and
yeah,
nightmares would be associated with say Lamashtu.
yeah, yeah, but I mean, typically a domain will like
I see what you're
you're
getting
you're
at though.
not yeah, you're not typically going to have access to like nightmares if you're going with something that doesn't also have that in their domains.
Like
Generally speaking, the domains tend to match up with the portfolio.
that's very true. It's a very awkward thing because like it's very good if you can heal allies with nightmares.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is you now need to find an at least neutral entity that could be related to nightmares via portfolio
That's
in some way.
where you throw out Desna because nightmares are just bad dreams.
I mean, you could probably make a case for Desna. That might be loose, but if you could make a case, by all means. All right, so let's get on to pain. Pain's pain. So pain, the heal offers a bonus against pain effects for a minute. They're not very common.
uh, Jesus Christ, I'm struggling to even think of some. Like there's a
There are
couple
some spells.
demons that have like specifically. Oh yeah,
There are
there
some.
is a couple spells.
There's some
Like
spells that are pain effects. There are a few creature abilities out there.
it is super limited.
It's yeah. That's not like we said. That's not very common. Your opponent's getting struck by a pain effect. So that heal probably not very useful. The harm we're in the case where the harm actually kind of good because like you can impose stick into targets and even nauseated to a target at like 10. So a bare minimum you're applying debuffs to things damaged, and at 10 one of those debuffs is nausea, which basically kind of you know prevents a guy from being able to do very much. And
Very effective ability.
it's another one of those that lasts for a short duration rather than for like a round. So the harm is good. The heal is kind of useless. Be negative energy, apply it to living targets. You can be fine. The pain for a good deity, again, like nightmares, might be hard to make a case for. Anyways, so you might not even have to worry about the pain heal being trash. Like actual garbage. Literal refuse. But yeah, the harm side's good. You can use the harm side.
Pretty good.
Poison heal, you won't believe it, gives a bonus to like poison saving throws. You know, saving throws against poisons. And it's fine. It's not great. It's fine.
It's a minute duration. Woo!
Yeah. Like, it's a minute duration. If you're fighting something that inflicts poison, the heal can be kind of valuable. This harm, and what's it do? You basically inflict one physical ability damage of your choice. Like, strength, con, dex. And being a will save that can damage con's fine. But you do need to spam the hell out of it to get any real effect from it. You could probably get more with other spells, or just basic channel with.
This one does not say your channel bonus, so that means that the amount of damage done does not increase.
Yeah, that's astute.
That makes this much worse.
I mean, okay, if you could slap 5 con damage at level 20, that might be. I mean, you're level 20.
Let's go smaller. Can slap more at level 20.
Let's go smaller. Let's say if you could slap 3 at 10, 3 at 10 would probably be overpowered. Because, like, it's an incidental effect tied to dealing a little bit of damage. And it's AoE. So I can understand why this doesn't scale. But also the fact that it doesn't scale makes it too slow to be something you can really rely on. Like,
Cherry Blossom Magic Missile does about that at 10. I think it does more than that at 10, actually.
Cherry Blossom Magic Missile is a deviant freaking thing that might deserve its own video because it's kind of busted and it's kind of hilarious.
Absolutely.
But, this is not Cherry Blossom Magic Missile.
No, this is crap. Because it's a poison effect, which means a lot of things can just be flat out immune to it.
You're not wrong. It being a poison effect hurts it. And it makes sense as a poison effect.
Yeah, it does make sense that it's a poison effect. It absolutely does. But it's like the low amount that it does, combined with the fact that it's like it's a poison effect. It's like you're gonna have to hit at least twice to make a realistic difference.
Yeah, like, you're probably going to need 2 applications to drop a creature's constitution enough to have them, like, well, you need it once to, like, and for a lot of creatures, it depends on whether you're looking at an even number or an odd number. Once will be enough for a lot of creatures, where they'll just lose their hit dice worth of HP from it. But then if you're channeling 2 more times to make that happen again, or channeling 2 times to get it to happen the first time, it's like, it's becoming inefficient quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and again, the fact that it's a poison effect just,
It hurts it. It doesn't necessarily kill it. It just means that there's a pile of creatures that are immune to poison that don't care.
Yeah, just a pile of creatures that are just flat out immune to this.
And being a poison effect also means that if they happen to have special resistance to poison, they get a bonus against your channel.
Yep.
You know, because poison effect. Adding a descriptor, sometimes good, sometimes bad. In this case, it's not doing it favors.
Suddenly resistant to your channel.
Yeah, it's not doing it favors in this case. All in all, like, to get good utility out of the poison channel, it's a little slow. It's a little slow if you're spamming it to get benefits out of the con damage. Well, I say con damage. You could be doing strength damage. You could be doing dex damage. The thing is that you're probably not going to know your enemy's ability scores, or you shouldn't know your enemy's ability scores. And if you don't know your enemy's ability scores, you don't know how efficient a channel will be. I guess if you're desperate, you can start trying to damage their dexterity to make it low enough to be more reasonably hittable. But if that's what you're doing with your turn for 2 to 3 turns, you're not casting real spells or doing much else. And I guess
Yeah.
it technically becomes a lot better if you have Quick Channel, because suddenly now you're using your move action to do that, so you can still cast. And if you still have your Swift action available to cast something else if you have Quicken. Like, there's ways to make it significantly better, but it still wouldn't be the most efficient thing you could be doing, probably. So, I guess it's time to talk about Protection Domain. The Protection Heal here, it just offers an AC bonus. This is fine, and can be quite good if your party is stacking AC. Like, you might be setting your fighter to a point where it's really hard for enemies to get over them. Or if it was already really hard, it might now be just almost impossible. They might have that 5% chance to actually do any damage. And the harm. So earlier I alluded to the idea that reducing AC might be too strong. It isn't. It's right here. Harm for protection just reduces the AC of like creatures damaged by it. I mean, yeah, still will save involved, of course. But like we're probably looking at like high AC martial type creatures where this is going to be the most useful. So like we're probably looking at creatures with maybe not good will saves traditionally. So you can probably get it to stick. And this can be especially good in combination with some other party members, like say the Unchained Rogue that could strip some AC, or a Shield Bash Fighter / Slayer / etc. that could tank some AC by just landing hits. And like, yeah, these effects last until like the end of your next turn. But like, come on. It's not bad. And like, you probably don't need to use the channel harm more than the once if you have other people to actually keep AC down. So your one use might get actually a lot of benefit, just making it where the rogue can hit more reliably and keep that AC low.
Yeah. Yeah, just lowering AC definitely nice.
Like, and this is the weird case where I'm actually saying, like, yeah, having something that built around party members can abuse, probably really good, but that's because just lowering AC for everyone is universally good, even if nobody's going to keep it down.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, the extra good news with this is the fact that like all of these harm effects also come with a chunk of change of damage.
yes.
So that is always a nice part about it.
Yeah. So, protection good. Revenge and vengeance. The heal just works like normal. So, I mean, that's fine. Heal works normal. And harm penalizes attack rolls until the end of the next turn. Nothing terribly special. It's fine. Possibly even good. It
Yeah,
ties
not bad.
well with allies that are buffing their AC out the wazoo. It's fine. You could take this. You're probably not missing much. So then we have a rulership. Oh boy. Some of these might sound familiar. So rulership, the heal gives a bonus to diplomacy, which I mean can be okay if you're doing the heal dance for your I don't know. I don't know why Bard trying to seduce the dragon comes to mind first. And I kinda hated that. If you're trying to diplomance, or you have an ally trying to diplomance, that can help a little bit. Yeah, so it boosts DC of language dependent and charm effects.
Which could actually be a little bit hilarious.
That could actually be good. And okay, again, like charm domain sounds okay with this. This might be like a kick that helps charm domain actually get up there because this is an effect that is applying to you and not your enemies. So boosting your own DCs, not bad.
Creatures gain a channel bonus, so yeah, your allies too. This is absolutely something that a certain Kitsune enchantress would love to have slap her on the butt.
As if Kitsune Enchantresses specifically that are sorcerers that are taking their favorite class bonus every 4 levels to increase their mind affecting effect DCs, or I should say their enchantment DCs, really need this.
Yes.
That wasn't passive aggressive at all. I don't.
Hey,
Anyways,
hey, you're not DMing her at least.
true. It lasts until the end of the channeler's next turn, and the harm will inflict daze. You know, daze' CC, it, like, basically makes it where a creature can't really, like, attack for a turn. CC's not bad.
CC
So,
always good.
a rulership, good.
Yeah, it got a lot better when I realized it said DCs in there.
Yeah, like, that took my brain a moment to parse too. And here I was getting completely ready to say, it's probably bad. No, it's good. So, ocean, sea, and water, like, it offers some various effects for a minute. A lot of them are more situational. In a nautical campaign, they can be great. And, like, the climb and swim are probably the ones that are most likely to see the light of day otherwise.
Skulls and Shackles, Cleric.
Yeah, for a Skulls and Shackles cleric, that heal could be pretty decent. Like, especially in situations where you might be required to hold your breath for an amount of time. Yeah, it lasts for a minute. And if you slap that like underwater, that's kind of great. And like the other effects, ignoring like fatigue from thirst, I mean, it's very specific fatigue. It's very specific fatigue. Because, like, thirst is probably one of the easiest things to quench. You're a cleric. You literally have access to a spell called Create Water. It's a cantrip. You can have it at level 1. It doesn't cost you anything to cast, and it gives you water. So, unless you're fighting an enemy that forces thirst, which there are a couple, that's kind of eh. And pressure damage from deep water, you're probably not that deep. And if you are, I don't know why you're there.
And
But
and
maybe
let's
for a good
also be
reason.
fair. If you're also down there, and the odds are you're not getting out of there in a minute.
I mean, no, not unless you're teleporting. Which, I mean,
Yeah,
you only really belong down that deep if you're high level.
yeah, or you were knocked overboard and you're the poor plate mail guy.
I think you'll drown before you get there. You might not. You might have a good enough con.
Yeah. Maybe not if you've already got this heal on you because you're holding your breath for it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
When the
fair.
cleric's blessing turns into a very terrible thing.
Yeah. So, the harm effect empowers, like, versus aquatic or water subtype creatures, and again, like, this variant channel is good for a nautical campaign. It doesn't really belong anywhere else, I don't think.
It was probably made specifically for a nautical campaign.
Yeah, like Skulls and Shackles is a good place for this.
Yes.
It doesn't really belong anywhere else. So then, secrets. Let's scroll to secrets and try not scrolling too far past it. Okay.
You can't talk about this. It's secrets.
Oh, it's secret. I guess I can't tell you that it can aid like well the channeler or their allies in like using divinations and making those like divinations stick a little bit more reliably and like a sense motive buff that it I can't say it offers right now because it's a secret. The sense motive buff that it offers isn't really the worst thing either. The harm, it might have a case where the harm might actually be the worst of the two effects because the harm is kind of asking for you to like set up with a third party to make it worth using. Because like if you're close enough to tag a creature with a channel, you don't need divination to see what they're up to.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, no. What the hell?
Like, okay, so most of the divination self buffs, or I should say, the divinations that don't ask for DCs are self buffs that that the enemy doesn't have really any input in whether you have or not, unless they've got Dispel or whatever, which that's not going to matter in any case, because the ones that have a DC are mostly like scrying and information gathering effects. And if you can tag them with channel, you don't need the buff that's being offered here.
Yeah, this feels like a very just dumb in general.
So I know I can't tell you about what secrets actually does or anything because it's secret, but I think I can
It's
tell
no
you
secret that it's pretty bad.
I don't think it's great. Like, the heal can be okay if you're relying on divination effects. If you're doing information gathering with like divination as a party, the harm's worthless. Well, worthless for players. There are really contrived, conceited, complicated scenarios where this healer or this harmer can walk up with their channel on the party, do the channel dance, and then some other third party far away can look through their scrying mirror or their crystal ball while stroking their chins, all mysterious, and going, "Ah, yes, that penalty to their saving throws is exactly the thing that I need to scry upon them," and then laugh evilly or something. Yeah, that's. You might see where this rant's gone. So, secrets, you probably aren't taking realistically. You could if you're using the divination and heal. You might get enough value out of it to be worth it. Eventually.
Maybe.
Maybe. So, self-perfection. Self-perfection, the heal allows a creature that's healed to just ignore a temporary condition, which would be most conditions in the game. Like, say, most mind controls for just, like, the single turn. And that can be great and can have quite a bit of value. And you can make a lot of mind control effects and similar effects kind of invalid just by channeling every turn, which the afflicted party will appreciate.
Probably.
And I mean, the bonus healing, they probably won't complain about either. Like, the healing is like a small bonus to that. And the harm side, it kind of makes it more difficult to recover from like ongoing effects. And I think that affects that's probably only really okay. All right, so sexuality, the heal side, it gives a bonus on perform, and bluff or diplomacy. It at least lasts for a minute. It's asking the channeler to be doing something specific that benefits from the boon. I'm not a big fan of the just buffs your skill checks ones because I fear that they could be disrupted to normal play. Because like, oh, you want to go perform, or you want to go bluff, or you want to go diplomacy, or you want to go do this. Here, let me just channel to give you that bonus real quick, and then you can go do your thing. This one at least lasts a minute. It doesn't do much else. And the harm penalizes versus fascinates and charms for a minute. It lasts a minute at least. And they may sound familiar and are kind of mostly worse from similar portfolios. I don't think sexuality is very good. Sorry.
No, unfortunately.
Rant over. So, slavery and tyranny. I feel weird saying that some of these, like, really angry, aggressive sounding ones are good, but that's sometimes how it is. Like, the heal, it lets a creature ignore fatigue and exhaustion. Why? It's so your slave can work harder for you. I'm sorry, that was probably not the best thing to say. That's a good effect. And like,
I can absolutely see that one getting dropped. Like when you got an ally barbarian. Let's say the DM actually takes advantage of that fatigue period to jump your group, and then you just slap the barbarian with this so that they can go right back into rage.
yeah, it's like,
Or this enables rage cycling shenanigans.
and like this effect also lasts a minute. So for that minute, they can ignore fatigue and exhaustion.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it allows some rage cycling shenanigans, pretty hardcore.
It's like you can one and done it, and it'll probably last your entire fight, and that just makes it a bit better than similar effects. Like, it's a little situational, sure, I guess. Ignoring fatigue and exhaustion for a minute, but it's like one and done, last the entire fight.
I don't know. Like I said, the rage cycling of this is just insane. Like the fact that for a minute your barbarian could like drop their rage, go right back into their rage because it's a free action on their turn, and then reuse a power that's supposed to be just once per rage.
Yeah, like there's also the oh, do you recall that? What is that finishing feat? Or you finish, or it might be a barbarian
Raging
ability.
finish
I don't think it's called raging finish.
or furious finish.
That sounds correct.
Yeah, where you like end your rage to do a really big strike.
Yeah, you end your rage and you do maximum damage.
Like
And
I
like,
said, this looks like it could combo very well if you have like one of these and a barbarian
yeah, and
or a misery.
then we also have like a harm here, and it inflicts a penalty versus compulsion, pain, and stun for a minute. It lasts easily long enough to take advantage of. And if the channeler has such
Oh, go ahead.
and if the channeler has such spells or effects, they can take advantage of it.
It lasts well enough to take advantage of, but I'm gonna say it, the heal side on this one definitely stronger. You can abuse that so well.
I mean, the penalty versus compulsion, the penalty versus compulsion, pretty good.
It is
The
pretty
penalty
good.
against stun, a little bit more narrow, but if you're using stunning critical or an ally's using stunning critical, then you at least have a guaranteed way to stun. Or if you have a monk with their stunning fist.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, again, pains are very situational. If you're channeling this, you might have pain effects of your own to actually throw down, so you can make this penalty relevant to your cleric if you're using it. But yeah, the heal side definitely wins out a bit here. Again, there's a little bit of an awkward case of slavery and tyranny. It's a little bit harder to find a neutral or good deity that's associated with it, or that'll like offer such a thing up.
Yeah.
But yeah. Slavery tyranny actually pretty good. Strategy, on the other hand. The strategy heal, it gives a bonus to aid another. Now, I don't see aid another coming up a lot, so I have a hard time saying that it's good. It's a technically beneficial buff. The harm prevents creatures from making AOs until like the end of next turn, which could allow your party to freely reposition if enemies fail their saves. I can see cases where the strategy heal is good, but it's just not very generically good. I think normal channel is better for the heal. For the harm, I mean, the harm prevents creatures from making AOs. If something's relying on combat reflexes or other mechanics similar, their AOO is just really big and nasty or gnarly, it could be good against them. But strategy is one of those that I have a hard time saying is better in any case for like than just taking the basic channel. It's like technically if you channel negative, it might be better. Technically. Because then you could probably ignore the heal boost, or if you have undead and your undead can't land a hit to save their lives because they're like level 1 skeletons and you're like level 8 or so, I guess a negative channel healing them, but also giving them a bonus to aid another to make someone who actually matters do slightly better. Okay, there's a use case. Clearly, it's a necromancer variant channel. But even then, like, there's better options.
There's better options.
Strength. So the heal boosts almost everything involving strength. Save damage, like, until the end of the next turn. Getting a bonus on strength-based attacks, like, on its own, probably worthwhile. It's not quite as good as some other possibilities, but giving your, like, strength-based fighter or barbarian a bonus to hit on all of their swings, not bad. It can't really be bad. And if you have to be strength-based, maybe you'll make use of it too.
Nah.
I don't fault this. It can be good.
Yeah,
It can be pretty good.
It can absolutely be good.
And the harm reduces strength-based statistics like CMD and strength-based rolls. Because it's a strength-based rolls as a very, like, just a line statement, there's a part of me that wonders if that also accounts for strength-based damage rolls. It's that's a gray line.
So.
That's
But
a gray
I would
line.
think so because it does say strength-based roll.
Yeah, it doesn't say d20 rolls. It's a very obscure line. Strictly speaking, your average damage roll does have strength applied. So, like, if it's reducing damage on monsters as well, that's pretty okay. But already, like, damaging to hit and CMB, that's pretty good. Like, not even considering that you're also affecting, like, climb and swim and other things that might possibly, potentially, maybe be relevant to them. And reducing their, like, CMD might make them easier to escape if they're a grapple monster. It'll make them harder for them to begin their grapple in the first place. Strength is good. Strength is good.
It is not bad at all.
So, Sun. So the Sun heal increases the light level by a step. And it helps to resist, like, blindness or other light-based effects. It's niche. Like, use cases for it could be to raise deeper darkness to darkness or darkness to low light if your party doesn't have dark vision. Or you could make standard light bright light to penalize things with, like, light blindness or light sensitivity with, like, a heal, which that could be beneficial. And, like, light-based effects, if you're relying on sunbeams, air, and sunbursts and similar effects, it might help you not accidentally blind the shit out of your party, or if your enemies throw them at you, maybe your enemies won't be blinded. Like, it's niche.
Since it's the sun heal, yeah, odds are you're probably Surrender with the sun domain. So you absolutely do have a lot of those effects that could blind people in an area.
Yeah. And then there's the harm, which inflicts dazzled, which we covered earlier. And creatures with light blindness or sensitivity are, like, blinded. The harm lasts a minute. Presumably so does the heal. It's also niche. It's okay. I don't know if this is better than basic channel, but it does have use cases where it can be very beneficial. It's just very niche. Not terrible. Or increasing light levels if something's dropping deeper darkness, or if you're not a high dark vision party and you need a quick burst to see. It's got use cases. I don't know if it's better than basic channel, though. So,
probably not.
Trickery. So the Trickery heal, it offers, like, skill check bonuses that would make a rogue smile. They last for a minute. Bluff, disguise, sleight of hand, stealth. They make rogue happy. Harm gives penalty to the skill checks that would oppose those skills. And they last a minute too. There are situations where it's useful, but probably not combat. And like, if you are channeling to harm to inflict the penalties to like perception and sense motive to help your rogue out, you probably just started a fight anyways. But channeling to heal probably would be fine. Probably. It depends on who you're interacting with and if they're offended by you pulling out your holy symbol and wub 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 to buff your party.
Nice sound effect there.
Thanks. Anyways, so Undeath is one that might need a little bit of talking through. Because this one confuses even me. So, the Undeath heal, it works like a standard channel. So, there's no downside to taking it for heal. It's just standard channel. The harm, and this is where my brain stops and goes, huh? It enhances the healing effect of undead. So, if you channel to harm, your undead get healed, I guess. Or it heals undead. And as well as other creatures with negative energy affinity.
Isn't that how you heal undead with channel? You channel negative energy into them?
Okay, so the way that channeling energy works typically is whether it's negative or positive, you're channeling to heal a creature type or harm a creature type. Which typically with positive energy, like the undead is the one being harmed in this arrangement, and in negative energy, the undead are the ones healed in this arrangement. So if you're channeling to harm with negative energy, technically you're channeling to harm living creatures, which means that undead should be unaffected, hypothetically. And that's a big reason why my brain goes, huh? It feels like it's written backwards to me. Because like, if you channel the harm, and your harm inflicts the half damage to living, but your undead for some reason are taking empowered healing off of you doing harm, that is very odd to my brain and very powerful. In fact, it's suddenly more powerful than the heal.
Actually, what I think this is just them saying this stupidly. And I'm pretty sure that instead of heal and harm, what they should have been using was positive and negative energy.
And if you slide all the way back to the first ruling where it says that heal only applies to heal when you're channeling positive energy, and harm only applies to negative channels to harm. Okay, that makes this make more sense suddenly the way it's written here. But throws everything else into question as to, okay, then how do they work? Do you kind of see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
It's very weird. My assumption is that this is meant to basically just empower healing for undead. And the rest is just normal, essentially.
Because the way I'm reading it here, it's like when channeling negative energy to harm, the afflicted creature only takes half the normal damage, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, yeah, when you're channeling negative energy to harm, but it's like negative energy could never harm an undead.
Exactly.
It always heals them.
Yes. Do you see why, like, the rules themselves are very weird? Because they're a little bit weird and contradictory within themselves. Because if you read about how the empowered effects work,
there's probably not going to be a good undeath user that's trying to heal undead. So odds are any undeath user that's using their channel is probably using the negative energy to harm an undead, which would in turn flip around and become healing for the undead.
Right, but there's still a case of you can either heal undead or harm living creatures. If the interaction is meant to be you heal undead creatures but also do full damage to living creatures, then that's how my brain makes sense of this the best. And there's also a case of, like, undead are considered evil by nature, and there's not really a case where a good deity will offer you this as a, like, blessing. Maybe you get away with it with a neutral deity, very maybe, but almost everyone who cares about undead in the sense of creating it, just about everybody there is evil, and I can't really think of even a neutral one.
Yeah. Yeah, but like Pharasma also would probably have undeath, but on the heal side.
I mean, Phasma would have death. I don't think she would necessarily have undeath.
But yeah.
But yeah, do you see why this one kind of makes my brain twist? Because
Also,
it
don't
makes
forget,
everything else kind of a
clerics
question
can
mark.
be one step away. So
They
if you
can
can
be.
find a lawful neutral or a neutral evil, a lawful evil or a neutral evil, you can still have a neutral cleric that chooses to do good channels.
That's not how cleric works.
Isn't cleric if you're neutral, pick one side? You do that or the other?
It refers back to God first. If you have a neutral god, then you can choose either. A neutral evil cleric that's worshiping Nethys could choose to have channel positive, because Nethys is true neutral. Yeah.
I mean, I think my way makes the most sense, but
yeah, but you can understand why this one makes me a little confused.
It was never confusing from me until you made it confusing.
True, but if you went back through and applied that logic to every other variant channel, it gets a little bit more complicated. And seems unintuitive, because that's not how you would assume it works. In any case, undeath, however it functions, truly, for those that care about it, it's always a strict upgrade. Like, if you're a necromancer cleric, it's an upgrade on your base channel. So, weapons. Grants a bonus on attack rolls when wielding the deity's favorite weapon. Your deity's favorite weapon. So it's kind of only useful, I imagine, if everyone is wielding your deity's favorite weapon. Which, if you got a good favorite weapon, you might be able to convince people to carry and wield it. But otherwise, it's a little bit too narrow. And the harm effect gives a penalty on attack and damage rolls with all manufactured weapons. So that side can be decent against humanoid or other manufactured weapon wielding creatures. I feel weapons is a little awkward in that it's kind of narrow. In any case, I think that in a lot of cases, basic channel might be better for weapons. Or better than weapons, because while the second benefit can be pretty nice, if enemies aren't actually like wielding weapons, it kind of doesn't do anything. Then we come to the bottom, weather. So, weather is a little bit neat. The heal gives a bonus to saving throws against electricity, sonic, and wind. This is a bit more useful than some of the contemporaries with, like, electricity is fairly common. So, like, narrow ones, like what Air offered being, like, wind or sonic, or language dependent. Electricity comes up more, so I kind of rate this a little bit better. And a little bit of a weird thing is they didn't really list a duration, so my brain wants to say probably it would be one of those that lasts till the end of next turn, but if your DM is nice, they might give you the minute duration instead. The harm gives like the ability for like your channel energy. Half the damage of it can be electricity or sonic. This is kind of neat, and it's pretty okay when it comes up relevant. Otherwise, it's not bad. This is arguably better than like the basic channel. That is actually the bottom of the list. So with some closing remarks, like I kind of wanted to cover this one for like the comprehensiveness of kind of getting information out, and two because this feels like it's a very obscure mechanic. Like until it was brought to my table, I did not know these were a thing. I asked Diz if she knew they were a thing. She knew what they were, but she's not a cleric player, so didn't really look into
I
them.
had heard about them, but I never looked into them all that much.
And like other players that I've asked, most of them like they weren't seem to be aware of this as a mechanic, or if they were, it was like a dim awareness that oh yeah, it's a thing. And as a mechanic, like the reason why I haven't subscribed deity specifically to each and every one is because I don't feel like it is a powerful enough mechanic to choose your deity over. You should be choosing more likely over what would this character worship, or what domains are you going after. And the selective channel should be an afterthought, kind of like it was for Paizo putting it in. Little dig.
All right. Well, I was looking it up, and from Reddit here, someone had said like they haven't used this particular because somebody was asking about the luck domain,
Right?
and the person here said I haven't used this particular one, but I will point out that harm abilities only apply to negative energy channelers, and then they linked a variant channeling either modifies positive energy when used to heal, or modifies negative energy when used to harm.
Yeah, I established that at the beginning and argued that
But
that sounds like a very weird rule.
yeah, it means you don't get both effects, which makes sense that okay, now you're on the negative energy would probably work whether you're healing undead or killing people.
True.
It's a very poorly written system.
It's not particularly well written and has its own
And
like
that's because nobody
internal
uses it.
freaking inconsistencies.
I mean, my other DM said no to me taking variant channel before Jack brought it to the table. You didn't even know it was a thing. I
Correct.
knew of it in passing.
And it's very obscure.
It is pretty
Or
obscure.
I think
And
it's
we
very
just
obscure.
dedicated 2.5 hours of our life to it.
Hell yeah. There's also, I think there's still a bit of a case where there might need to be an errata somewhere, if it exists, clarifying.
Cute. You think they care about
Because,
doing anything to our edition except nerfing it?
sure. Because the sheer fact of this exists. Here's a rule. Here's a rule down here that directly or indirectly goes against this rule. So I think the statement that says that it can provide bonuses on the harm side, that gives me a case for thinking that it was intended to go both ways. And that the original first rule could have been written incorrectly. Because one of the two is wrong. Right, well, if you like what we do, consider leaving a like. And if you want to see more, consider subscribing. And if you want input on what we talk about next, consider leaving a comment. Bye!